Thinking about buying a home in Hampton Roads in 2023, then stick around for this video because today I'm joined by Jeremy Jordan with Atlantic Bay Mortgage. We're going to talk about how you can set yourself up financially at the end of 2022 so that you can buy in 2023. My name is David Tortellini. I'm with eXp Realty, and every day I help people buy and sell homes here in Hampton Roads, Williamsburg, and the surrounding area. So subscribe to this channel for more videos, and let's get started, and we'll let Jeremy take it away.
As a part of your broadcast today.
Yeah, appreciate it. Appreciate being here.
So I know that there's been a lot of conversation this year just about the real estate market just in general. We've had a lot of moving pieces with some rise in interest rates this year, and as a result, I think it's brought a little bit of fear to prospective buyers.
Yeah, it sure has.
So I think ultimately putting together a plan for folks that might have been on the fence a little bit in 2022 to prepare them for 2023, and this opportunity I think will allow us to do that for them.
Yeah, that's great. So what can people really be doing here? It's early December. What can people be doing here over the next 4 to 6 weeks to start getting themselves prepared for next year?
I mean, I think ultimately right now it's all about gathering information.
Okay.
And I think right now for a lot of prospective buyers right now that there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah.
There's forecasts with rates that are going to be dropping back down to 5% range, and there was a forecast this morning that says rates may go up to 7.4%.
Yeah, that's a huge range. Yeah, that's a big difference.
I mean, just an unprecedented difference in terms of rates. So yeah. I think it's being able to educate buyers on where the market is currently. Mm-hmm. We are selling more right now to more payment, as opposed to rate right now.
Right.
But I mean, if you look historically over the last 20 years, we are still even below, those averages. So,
yeah.
Again, Hampton Roads still remains a great, opportunity for folks to purchase.
For sure. I mean, we're still very fortunate here that even as prices have gone up significantly, we're still at the national average or even below. Sure. And so homes are still relatively affordable here. Of course, we have some higher price point areas, but overall for, say, military PCSing into the area and stuff, this is a pretty good place to be able to buy a house.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, having the, Newport News Shipbuilding or Huntington Ingalls in our backyard and the military and, some of our other larger employers, I think helps bring a lot of stability into our market. And I think ultimately, real estate in general is more, regional based or location based.
Yeah.
I mean, you can look at the market trends across the country, but I think you really have to be in your own backyard.
For sure.
And really kind of know the local market right now.
Yeah. Because as much as we have the national media that always focuses on what's happening in real estate on the national level, really real estate is a very local.
I agree.
I mean, it can even get down to the neighborhood,
Correct.
You can have neighborhoods a mile away from each other, and one is values are going down, and the other one values are going up. And
I agree.
So it's especially around here, right, where we tend to have a lot of very diverse price points close to each other due to a lot of like waterfront and things like that in the area.
Sure. Yeah.
So where do you think someone right now who is looking to buy a home, where should they start right now?
So, I think the thing that makes us different here at Atlantic Bay and utilizing my services that we still offer in-office consultations.
Okay.
Like we are still, available for you to come in and learn more about the process and have some familiarity with me and feel comfortable.
Sure.
I think that in some ways through the COVID-related environment that we've seen, the mortgage side has become more transactional based, where it's all about getting in and getting the loan in and getting it closed. I think I know I take a different approach. I'm a little bit old school in that regards. I would rather, get to meet the client face to face and sit down with them. And there are some instances where clients right now don't want that. They still want to do, fill out the online application and I may never see them till bringing them a close and get the closing.
Yeah, so, sure happens these days.
And we're able to work around, the needs and desires of that individual. But okay. I think for a lot of folks, getting back to those in-person meetings and having that face-to-face time and building that rapport and feeling comfortable about, the individual that's pushing your paper to help you get through the financing side.
There sure is a whole lot more to it than just then it's not just filling out an online application and uploading some documents to a portal.
Right.
There's a lot more to the process, and building that relationship and really going over it and actually showing that you care about the client makes a big difference.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly one of our mottos, at Atlantic Bay, is just, the genuine care and consultation of our clients is our highest mission. So
absolutely.
Making sure that we, have that rapport. And ironically, a lot of my clients, which is a good thing, clients come in, I don't have any relationship with them, and they, after 30 days, they end up becoming friends.
Yeah.
We hang out a little bit on the weekends and things like that. So it's a nice dynamic.
That's great. So if I am looking to buy a home here in 2023, and I don't know where to start from a financial perspective, but I think I'm in a good spot, what are some of the maybe documents I can start putting together that can help make the approval process easy for me?
I mean, it always helps to have, your last 2 years W-2s.
Okay.
Last 30 days worth of pay stubs.
Okay.
Your last 2 months bank statements, all pages of those documents.
Yep.
And then any other supporting information that might be necessary. So, for example, if I'm dealing with a self-employed business owner.
Oh, geez. Yeah.
I mean, out of the gate, and I'll tell my self-employed business owners, please understand that I, want to make your life a little bit easier. If you have, a CPA or recommend somebody that does your taxes, you might want to call them or send an email to them and grant authorization, because I'm going to need, the last 2 years personal and business tax returns, all pages, all schedules, along with any 1099s, W-2s, K-1s, things of that nature. So it can be pretty cumbersome on any commission-based employee like myself.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
Like us,
Yep.
or any self-employed business owner. But we again, I think the biggest thing for self-employed business owners is trying to tell them, hey, it is of benefit to you from the start to gather all this information, because it enables me to then give them the information they need. Is, well, what do I qualify for?
Right.
But without a lot of that information, we don't have it. And ironically, it's a great time of the year for those types of borrowers right now, because we are, year end is rapidly approaching.
Yeah.
And therefore, folks are going to be getting in February or March to get with their CPAs or bookkeepers. Mm-hmm. So if we can help kind of analyze tax returns and give them advice and guidance with maybe how to, how their CPA can help them file for their 2022 year in 2023, it might enable them to purchase that home.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, is just having a mortgage banker or a lender or banker that understands how to work with those types of borrowers.
For sure. Now, is there any harm to going and getting pre-approved early and then before you file your 2022 taxes? Is there a harm to that?
No, there's not, and they may be ready to go now. Given what documentation we're able to get with them.
Sure.
A year-to-date unaudited P&L statement for this year is always helpful as well.
Yeah.
2 to 3 months business bank statements. So there, as you can see, as we talk through it, there's just a lot of information that a self-employed or commission-based employee needs to gather. But I think ultimately, being able to again sit down with a reputable mortgage banker, somebody that understands business tax returns and can provide them some guidance up front.
Sure.
And then again, if it's, hey, we need to do this in preparation for that filing period, they know in advance.
Yeah.
And there are some instances that that some loans, depending on the type of loan the borrower would be eligible for, we might only have to use 1 year's tax returns.
Okay.
Which that's of benefit now, because through this COVID environment, there are some businesses that may have been affected through the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe where business went down, but it was kind of an anomaly that wasn't a normal market cycle for them. And hey, business for 2022 has been great.
Yep.
And we certainly like to see a lot of our self-employed business owners having great years. But those COVID years may have been down, and that 2-year average may be bringing their qualifying income down.
For sure.
But if we can educate them on, hey, here's what you need to do to file properly for 2022, that's helpful information that folks, and again, that process can be started now. It's, December's here. So.
Yep, absolutely. So what about someone who got a big raise in 2022 and they don't have a tax return on that? Can their pay stubs help qualify that new that new salary for them?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So if they are a salary-based employee, that really makes life a whole lot easier.
Right.
Because we can actually go off of that revised salary. So if they were making, $62,000 and now they're making $85,000, we can qualify them off of that higher salary.
Sure. Okay, great.
From a qualifying side of things.
Okay.
We can even count things like bonus income if it's something that we can show over a 2-year period. Overtime, I have a lot of folks that work at Huntington Ingalls or Newport Shipbuilding, and there are some of those trades that those guys and ladies are working 6-7 days a week, and a lot of their supplemental pay is in the form of overtime income.
Sure.
And they can kind of rely on that and count on that from a qualifying side of things.
Now that does need to be tracked consistently, right? Like you can't just just throw it on the application and count it. That's
like if they just started that overtime series of pay where they're working another 10 to 15 hours of overtime a week, and there's only like a 6-month window there. Again, it's
how long?
Those 2-year averages are kind of the key.
Okay.
2 years averages for bonus income, 2 years averages for overtime income.
So if it's your first year at the shipyard, that overtime is going to be really tough to qualify someone with. But for someone who's been there for a while and has been doing it for a long time, and they can really and have a track record for that overtime pay, they can really use that to qualify. I know I know that income that is outside of anything other than what's on a W-2 every other week paycheck can be pretty tough to start to qualify people with.
It can be. For
absolutely.
Sure.
So what about our military folks? Say like you're young military, you're thinking about you're PCSing into the area and you are going to buy your first home.
Yeah.
Is there anything specific that our VA buyers need to do?
Man, it's a great question. I mean, I think it's a great time for our military folks that have their VA eligibility.
Sure.
One of the things that we will do with our military folks right out of the gate is we will help them, go directly to the VA and get their certificate of eligibility.
Yep.
Which is a document that just basically says, hey, we know that we're eligible, but now the VA has to tell us and check the box that we're eligible. So we will actually help an enlisted veteran or officer, whomever, get their certificate of eligibility from the VA.
Right.
Our technology and our resources allow us to really kind of almost simultaneously get it. We place the order, and then within an hour or two, we typically have that back.
Okay, great.
If they're retired or out of the service, then we usually ask for a DD-214. To support that document.
Okay, great.
That we will send in with the with that certificate eligibility. But for first-time home buyers right now in the military, depending on their rank and salary, wages, things like that, man, we've been able to help some folks with one of the Virginia Housing Development grants.
Okay, great.
Where they can get a 2% grant to be used towards their closing costs. Which that's been super helpful, over the course of the past year.
Yeah.
Where we've seen less seller concessions.
Yeah, we sure have
on the table. So being able for those military buyers to take advantage of that first-time home buyer program is great. The VA loan is the best loan going. I mean, I don't think there's a better loan option out there for those that are eligible, and rightfully so, for those that have served our country and made the sacrifices. They deserve a loan a little bit better than everybody else. But so 100% financing. One of the common misconceptions is I don't have to put any money down. Well, you don't have to put any money down
on the loan,
but there are closing costs and things like that that come into play, and those typically run 3 to 3.5% of the purchase price.
Of the purchase price, yes. That is probably the biggest misconception I run into, especially with first time
for sure
VA home buyers.
And again, they're prone to hear and think that there's no money due, no money. There's not any down payment required, as we know. But there are closing costs typically that come into play.
And so since the average sale price in Hampton Roads right now is just over $300,000, that means they do need about $9,000, give or take, saved up for closing costs, even though they don't have to put money down on the loan portion.
Correct.
They still are going to have to, have $9,000 saved up, give or take, for closing costs, plus, the cost of a home inspection.
Earnest money deposit.
So, they really do need more like, 10 or 12 really saved up in order to be able to move forward with the purchase.
And again, I think that's another one of the keys by being able to get in, sooner rather than later. Yeah. If there's desire to purchase in 2023 is to get in now and hear those numbers on paper and make sure those proper expectations are set and put a plan together that works for them.
Absolutely.
I think that's the biggest key.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And while we are starting to see some seller concessions come back, like, there is an opportunity for some people to get closing cost assistance now. It's just not a guarantee. If this was a year ago, I'd say absolutely not.
Right.
But now we're starting to see it, so it is a possibility at some price points.
Yeah, I agree.
But, for your more popular areas, for Williamsburg, York County, it's just not going to be an opportunity for most home buyers to get closing cost assistance. So it just depends on where they're at. But how much closing cost assistance could theoretically a VA buyer get?
So it's really, there's no defined amount, for example. It's whatever, common and customary. And so it's really an open book, for an example. You can really almost ask, for almost anything. That's, and with a VA loan in particular too, it would take a special set of circumstances, but even if someone is in a lease until August of next year, for example, if that individual has a lease buyout option in their, the rental contract, a seller theoretically can pay that lease buyout if there's like a 1 month or 2 month buyout. There's been many instances through the years where I've been able to assist buyers with that, but again, not that we can guarantee that a seller would be willing to do that.
But I have done that in the past. It's a good option when you're in a strong buyer's market and you can negotiate that. That's a really nice option that the VA buyer has.
Yeah, and really only really on nice. The VA side where you can negotiate that potentially. But again, that might come into play if there's a situation where there's a client saying, "Hey, I'm going to lease till August." Give us a call and let's chat about that.
For sure. Now let's switch gears completely and go from our VA buyers who tend to be low money down, or no money down. Though we do see VA buyers put money down. You can put money down on a VA loan. Let's go to our higher end luxury buyers. A lot of people have cash right now, and they've got a good amount either from a home sale in another state. Maybe they're coming down from New York or DC, and they have a good amount of cash saved up, or they just have a lot of cash in investment accounts or foreign accounts. What can those people be doing to really prepare themselves to make sure that money is available?
Yeah, so it's more my wheelhouse in that at that price range. I deal with a lot of those types of buyers as well, and I think the biggest thing is having a conversation with that prospective client about what is their desires. Do they have a certain dollar amount that they want to make sure that they have set aside to put down? On that purchase. I also typically ask that client, "Hey, is there an option for us to get on a joint conference call with your financial advisor?" Just to make sure that the financial advisor and the client and I are on the same page, because at the end of the day, putting them in the best financial situation is a desire of mine. There's some questions that come into play if like an individual sold a house. There was a misconception the other day about a client that had a primary residence that sold a primary residence, and because of that sale, they netted $300,000 in equity. And they were under the impression that if they didn't put that full $300,000 down in equity from their sale being a primary residence, that they would have to pay taxes on any of the money that wasn't used towards the new purchase. So again, just being able to get with the financial advisor, possibly their CPA, and again, just map out a financial plan that works for them and their budget. Again, majority of the time when I mention that, folks say, "Well, gosh, I've bought and sold homes for my whole adult life, and I've never had that opportunity. I love that idea. Let me see if I can get them on the phone. In the meantime, we can start the process and everything." But again, making sure that it fits into their financial plan is critical.
Is it difficult for someone to pull the money from an investment account where it's not liquid?
It's typically not. And again, another one of the reasons why, if money's coming from any retirement account or investment account, having a conversation with that financial advisor up front is helpful. There are instances where there may be taxable implications with pulling money from an investment. Maybe they're not of age to take it from an IRA, or but again, consulting their financial advisor is critical. Again, I also work with some of the top financial advisors in the Hampton Roads area. So even if somebody's moving from out of state, it might have a need for one locally, which again, a lot of folks, from time to time will like having their financial advisor being locally that they can come and sit down with. But, so we're able to offer and refer folks out to that as well, just to make sure all those I's are dotted and T's are crossed.
And what about money that's in a foreign account? I know that foreign accounts or money that's held in a foreign currency can be a challenge, and I know we have a lot of international buyers in this area, people who have been in Korea for years or coming over from Europe somewhere. What are the challenges for those people?
I think the challenges ultimately is just being able to document and source the money from where it started to how it gets back to the States.
Okay.
I mean, I think we call it the paper trail in the mortgage business.
Sure.
So being able to start it, wherever it originated to where it's coming to.
Right.
So, but again, we've dealt with that in the past. I'm familiar with how that process works. Different countries and different states have different, rules and regulations behind those. Yet again, getting with me up front, formulating that plan. Yeah. Because again, those are instances where it might, lengthen the home buying process. We may need an extra couple weeks to be able to document, the paper trail of some of those accounts, or to get the currency back to, U.S. currency. So again, those are challenging scenarios, but ones that we are, able to assist and guide folks with.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know that there's always a challenge when money is held in a foreign currency, and just want to always be prepared about what that process is going to look like.
Sure.
That way, when people are ready to pull the trigger, now, is there any harm for those people to start working on getting that money into U.S. currency now?
I don't think so. Sense? Yeah, I think it's probably a good way to go ahead and get started, because ultimately there's what's called a seasoning period that kind of applies in the mortgage business, where the money has to, be seasoned for say 30 or 60 days prior to being utilized for closing. So it never hurts to go ahead and possibly start that process sooner, maybe even before calling me to get those pieces in motion.
Okay, great. So then we have a lot of people who have the cash that they're purchasing for their own home. But we also are starting to see, at least I'm starting to see, a lot of parents and grandparents who are providing large down payments to their children and grandchildren. So what does that process look like? What can we do? What could a young buyer right now who's going to be getting a hefty sum of money from a family member do to make sure that they have the money in place and have the documentation for you?
I actually say if they are getting ready to purchase in the next 30 to 60 days, to not do anything in terms of that transfer of funds yet.
Oh, okay.
I think it makes it easier on my end to understand what type of loan that buyer is going to be qualified for.
Okay.
And then the rules and regulations for that type of loan will come into play with how the gifting process needs to be done.
Okay.
So, conventional gifting process is typically easier than FHA.
Okay.
Again, just in terms of the documentation that's needed, it's one of those things that certainly up front, those are conversations that we have with the borrower, and oftentimes I even get on the phone if a parent is involved. Because I'm of the opinion that if my son or daughter, which I have one of each, get to the point where they want to purchase a house, if I'm willing and able to help them, then I feel like I should just be able to transfer that money to them without any consequences or.
A lot of people.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
And I tell folks all the time, it is not Jeremy Jordan or Atlantic Bay just being difficult.
Right.
We have to follow the guidelines that are put forth by Fannie or Freddie or those entities. So there's a set of policies and procedures around the gifting of funds that we have to follow.
Now, is there anything documentation-wise that they'll need at the application process?
I think just the range of the estimated gift.
Okay.
So, for example, I had a client yesterday whose mother was gifting her $75,000.
Sure.
We knew that weeks ago.
Okay.
We waited and knew that, from a timing perspective, we wanted to make sure that we got through the home inspection, that we got through the appraisal process. And as long as we were a week out or more from closing, we knew that we had the time, to be able to have that window in order to get those gift funds done. So again, clearly, we talked about it up front. Everybody was aware of the timelines. And then now that we were through those, those pieces of the puzzle, the gifting process to occur, cashier's check made out to the settlement agent, signed gift letter. Again, we prepare the gift letter and things like that. But we walk through, the parent in that instance and the buyer through that process.
And does the person gifting the money have to provide any documentation about where those funds came from? Do they have to provide 2 months of bank statements or anything like that?
It really just kind of goes back to what type of loan the buyer is getting.
Okay.
Because there are different rules, again, for FHA loans, the conventional loans and BL. So again, the loan type is gonna kind of make an instance where it might be a little bit more documentation or a little bit less needed.
Sure. Okay.
But again, those are conversations that we have up front so that everybody's on the same page. Because again, the last thing we want to do is get to a week before closing, tell that parent, okay, it's now time to gift the money over, and they don't want to provide the one day transaction summary that FHA might require that's stamped and signed by the teller.
Yes.
But again, I think having that mortgage banker that guides them through the process and has that gifting plan in place. Now, if it's if it's months down the road, it wouldn't.
There's no point in transferring that money now.
I don't think so.
Okay, because that process can be done fairly quickly.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people think that they need to get the money
in advance
before they even start the process. And then we, like you mentioned earlier, we run into parents that are just like, just tell me where to write the check.
That's right.
And it's a little more than that too.
Yeah, for sure.
So, but it is very doable.
Happens all the time.
Yeah,
happens all the time.
Now, who can gift someone money?
So oftentimes we like to just say it has family ties to it. Okay. So a family member, there are certain loans that, it might be an employer gift or things like that from time to time.
Oh, okay.
So again, getting back to the type of financing option, kind of distinguishes what options in terms of where the gift could potentially come from.
Can't be just a friend though.
Not typically a friend.
Not typically a friend. Usually a parent, grandparent,
cousin, aunt, uncle.
I had one that was a child gifted the mother recently.
That can happen. For sure. We're actually talking with a prospective borrower now about that.
Yep.
Where the son is actually helping the mother out.
There you go. So as long as it's a family member, just can't be.
Yeah, that's the safe bet. A family member with family member ties.
Okay.
And again, we'll educate the client up front.
And of course, that gifter doesn't end up on the deed or on the mortgage or anything like that. Nope. So they're not tied to into the property.
And you bring up that point, and I think it's a point that needs to be certainly talked about, is the fact that there is another common misconception about that money from the gifting party, if it's in excess of a certain dollar amount, is taxable. Well, it is potentially, but take an example: a parent gifting it to a son or daughter. There are some things that they can talk about with their CPA about having their CPA filing an extra form saying they gifted, say, $40,000, to their son or daughter.
Sure.
And there's some, as long as that form is filled out, then it comes off of their estate baseline.
Okay.
So there's some ways even around having to worry about that money being taxed.
Great. Okay.
But again, we refer that out to the the professional and ask them to get their advice from them directly.
Okay.
Just because although my background is in accounting and finance, I'm not a licensed CPA, so we leave it to the expert to be able to guide our clients. But we do kind of say, hey, ask if this is a possible or viable option given your financial situation.
All right, that sounds great. So I think at this point we can probably just do a little summary of kind of if you're looking to buy your first home or make a move into the Hampton Roads area. If we just had to put together a little packet of here are your bullet points. Let's go over those real quick as a summary.
Yeah, I think ultimately, the process itself, how long is a pre-approval letter good for? That's a question I get regularly.
Sure.
Good for about 120 days. Okay. So we also, on top of it, have what's called a fast-track buyer advantage program.
Okay.
Which enables me to take a prospective client that might be looking to purchase now, but might be a couple months from now because they want to be diligent and want to find the right house for them. It enables them to get fully, not only just pre-qualified like a normal buyer, but it actually enables me to get them fully approved and underwritten.
Okay, wow, yeah.
So what it does do is it strengthens their offer letter. Yep. So, we are now giving a conditional approval letter because they've been through the full underwriting process.
Great. Again,
still good for 120 days. But in this environment through 2022, that is that's won so many deals for our prospective clients, just because we've been able to get provide them with an actual conditional approval letter through underwriting.
Right.
And I will call the listing agent and make them aware that, hey, please understand that the letter that you have in hand, exemplifies that this particular client has met the full underwriting process.
Right.
So we are literally, title, appraisal, some of the other little basic stuff.
Sure.
But it's not a cash buyer, but nonetheless, it's all but a guarantee there.
That's great.
And that's been really helpful. Great. Being able to offer that fast track advantage program. And I think the other thing is there are folks from time to time that are hesitant about their credit being pulled.
Right. They are. They don't want that hard credit pull.
They don't want that hard credit pull. We do have an option for a soft inquiry. All of our buyers or pre-quals start with the soft inquiry.
Yep.
So they need to get through and allow someone like myself to be able to initiate that process.
Right.
And if we can initiate it in a manner that's a soft credit check done on their credit report, it's really a win-win for them.
Right.
Because then it enables me to kind of get a baseline as to where they are.
Right.
So we deal with local credit reporting, credit scoring folks, that if they need assistance or guidance,
yep.
We deal with some of the top credit experts and can refer them out. If it's more of a longer term plan that's needed, if it's anything short term, we can help and guide them and give them advice that they need, so that they're not having to pay a Lexington Law or one of the national firms.
Yeah, we've certainly had some buyers come through where we've been able to help them go back to the credit reporters and really just make a couple of adjustments on things, or pay off a couple of things that are maybe in collection or something, and
sometimes
then boost their score really quickly.
Yeah. Sometimes it's an account that the buyer didn't even know was in their name.
Yeah.
Sometimes maybe it's a military client that was had PCS'd and the bill went to their old address and they never got the notification. Maybe they're on an account as an authorized user.
Yes.
And that account's gone belly up and they can get removed as an authorized user. So there's a lot of instances where we can provide guidance.
Yeah. So getting that credit check early has so many advantages, because the number of people who have come through the process and been surprised by what they've found, is numerous, and really just getting that process taken care of up front, even if you're a fall 2023 buyer, to take a look at it pretty soon and say, hey, all right, well, if there's a mistake on there, or if there's something I need to work on to put myself in a better position. Correct. Because our conventional loan buyers probably get a better interest rate.
Higher credit score. Yeah,
so if they can work on that over the next 9 months, at least they know what it is now, and they can take the next 9 months to make improvements. Then when they're ready to go in September, October, they're in a better position than they would have been in January, February. So there really is very, very little downside to getting pre-approved now, getting those W-2s prepared, getting the your bank statements prepared, and when we say bank statements, we mean all bank statements, not just the ones you feel like sending, and really being able to give you as much information as possible up front, so that no matter whether it's March or next November that you want to buy, that you're in the best position possible.
Sure.
Especially because the number of people we've had that have said, hey, I'm thinking about a summer or fall purchase, who have then seen something come up in February and gone, oh, I think I moved up my timeline.
Exactly.
If you're not pre-approved, if you haven't taken all those steps, then there's a good chance you're going to miss out on that dream home that just happened to pop up. So
agreed.
So now is a good time to start the process. Start putting your finances in order, start knowing that you do have to save for those closing costs, and then really kind of get that application in, start working with you on the pre-approval process.
Correct.
And and from there we'll be able to be in a good position to get you set up, start tracking the market, figure out exactly what's going to work. And obviously you don't have to be here in Hampton Roads yet to do it. No. So if someone is PCSing to the area in the spring or summer, they can reach out to you now. Yeah,
we can do a Zoom call, a Teams call. That's with technology through the COVID stuff. We've been able to initiate those types of things. So being to still have that face to face. And folks sometimes will just do the whole FaceTime thing. Through the cell phones. But again, those available appointments are certainly always open.
Absolutely, and that's going to be one of the big things, especially with our market's still pretty competitive. So when people are looking, one of the great things about having a local lender is their response time, availability to get me a pre-approval letter on the weekends, where there are a lot of the big, internet lenders and some of the strictly Monday through Friday 9 to 5 lenders are not going to be available to get us the documentation we need in order to put in a competitive offer on a short timeline. So that's why Jeremy and I have fortunately had a great relationship over the years, and we've been able to get some deals closed and get people into homes where in other situations they may not have been able to compete on those properties. But I really appreciate you coming by to do this, to talk about what people can do to prepare for 2023. I think it's really important conversation for us to have, and
Agreed.
I think it's really important for people to start the process well in advance.
Sure.
I think that in my experience, the people who start the process earlier have a better experience over the long run. It's the people who say to me, yeah, I'm not going to get pre-approved till I find a property I like,
Right.
or which we don't really do because we don't show people property until they're approved.
Right.
Those kind of people where they're rushing through it and they don't realize, this mortgage process is a little bit more. It's not like getting pre-approved for a car loan. I think people think it's like getting pre-approved for a car loan.
Yeah,
where
totally
you just
different.
show up and an hour later you drive away.
And unfortunately, with Zestimates and things like that, if folks are trying to find out, well, what is my budget?
Yeah.
And there's online mortgage calculators. Unfortunately, they serve their purpose,
Sure.
but in most instances, those are inaccurate.
Right.
And
Exactly.
for a lot of reasons, they may not appropriately, list the buyer's, monthly private mortgage insurance or PMI. They might not know the tax rate for the Hampton Roads area or Hampton Roads market properly. There's a host of things that make those online payment calculators inaccurate.
Right.
That if you start with that process, and we've had countless buyers say, well, gosh, I was expecting, X, and it ended up being Y. Well, the reason is because those calculators are a little bit inaccurate.
Sure.
But being able to just gather that information through through
Absolutely.
that pre-qual is important.
That's great. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap up today's video. Again, Jeremy Jordan, Atlantic Bay Mortgage. His contact information will be here, and we also will be in the description, so you can reach out to him and get that mortgage application process started. Of course, me and my team are here to help you out with your purchase here in Hampton Roads or Williamsburg surrounding area. We would love to help you out. So give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. We'll get you started, get you hooked up with Jeremy so that you're in the right position to buy a house in 2023. All right. Thanks so much for watching.